On January 26, 2015, Riot Games, the studio behind League of Legends, released a landmark music video called The Curse of the Sad Mummy. As a player for 2 years at that point, this cinematic changed the way I felt about League of Legends. League was an outlet perfect for satisfying my competitive drive while still being something I could do for fun with friends. The feeling of playing League is complex. It's occasionally hype, a little frustrating, but in those perfect moments, it was a feeling of triumphant bliss. The one thing I never felt League of Legends would be, to me however, was a narratively fulfilling experience. League was chess, but it wasn't the Queen's Gambit. And it was when watching The Curse of the Sad Mummy that I realized I might have been wrong. If you've ever been to the League of Legends subreddit during one of Riot's in-game events, you might be fooled into thinking that League is the next BioWare RPG with how rabid its community members discuss lore. And furthermore, you could even be convinced that this story-driven role-playing game was being progressively ruined with each passing day by the studio's highly dedicated and focused team of writers. This post from 4 months ago discussing an inconsistency in lore for the Ruination event has over 16,000 upvotes. Listen, I'm not here to yuck anyone's yum. If you get your rocks off to reading Wikipedia lore and investing deeply into each and every character bio, more power to you. But that was just never the driving force behind why I loved League. And yet, here is this 4-minute short story about one of League's oldest characters that leaves me absolutely bawling. It's a tear-jerking song about a sad little boy who became cursed to live his life in isolation, and his heartbreaking journey to find just a single friend. It's a harrowing tale that blends powerful vocals with this beautiful papier-mâché art style, creating a strong juxtaposition between the childhood storybook you wish it were and the gothic nightmare that it truly is. In the 6 or 7 years since this song came out, I've revisited The Curse of the Sad Mummy probably hundreds of times to remind myself of the powerful creative force behind some of League of Legends' greatest projects. And this was just the beginning. Since then, Riot has gone on to make cinematics detailing the epic journey of their esports legends, collaborations with music titans like Imagine Dragons, and of course the cultural phenom that was the K-pop group KDA. But all of these begin to pale in comparison when the creative team behind Riot release perhaps their magnum opus. My name is Hoodie Song, this is Kato, and today let's join the masses and talk about Arcane. This video is brought to you by my very own webcomic, Romeo, Juliet, and Juliet, now available on Webtoons. Romeo, Juliet, and Juliet is a polyamorous love story following 3 young artists as they traverse the chaotic industry of modern entertainment. The webcomic is equal parts romance and a love letter to storytelling heavily inspired by the likes of Bakuman and La La Land. The entire first season is up for free on Webtoons, with a second season deep in the works. Check out the link in the description and make sure to subscribe on Webtoons to get a notification every time a new episode goes live. Now back to the video. On the first night that Arcane had its premiere, I watched the first episode with some of the people in our patron Discord. By the next night, I had seen all 3 of those first released episodes twice. By the end of that week, I had shown Arcane to every person I could fathom caring and had seen those 3 episodes a total of 5 times. I promise you this was not fanboyism. If the show had been even slightly mediocre, I would have let it fall to the back burner alongside every other show on my growing to watch list, knowing full well I'm going to forget about them by the next time I'm bored. I recommended Arcane to everyone because, like The Curse of the Sad Mummy and a number of cinematics since, I fell in love with this story. And I use the term story here as opposed to writing because I truly think the beauty of Arcane transcends a great piece of writing with how absolutely stunning it is on a visual level. In a lot of Riot cinematics, like most other game companies, art style tends to default to generic, clean 3D models that just toe the line before Uncanny Valley. But that was evidently not the case with Arcane from frame 1. This is a beautiful story, not just as a tale of 2 sisters and a broken family, but also in its unique aesthetic that transcends bland 3D with the use of paint-like coloring and 2D VFX assets. One thing that stood out to me, even above all of that though, was a general approach to storytelling that I theorize is unique to Arcane's roots within League of Legends, and more specifically stems from the creative team's training in the very game cinematics I've been referencing. In my opinion, the defining stylistic trait of Arcane is in its tendency to embrace the presentations of a music video. More so than its voice acting, setting, or even art style, the one thing I felt was truly unique to this show was how easily it slipped in and out of hyper-stylized, bite-sized moments of intense visual metaphor. One of the best examples becomes an absolutely iconic moment that completely abandons the visual world we've built thus far to transcend into a sequence of stunning beauty that becomes impossible to forget. It is a scene that I've had on replay since the moment it came out. Of course, I'm referring to Echo vs Jinx, a battle between old friends. Going into the show as a fan of League of Legends, it was unclear to me how long we'd spend in the childhoods of these characters. These are people we've come to know and love, but specifically in their adult forms as we play them on Summoner's Rift. Riot makes a really bold choice to spend a third of the show, its first 3 whole episodes, with some of its most iconic characters in an almost unrecognizable state. The disparity between Jinx as we knew her these past 3 years and Powder we spent 3 hours with are vast, and it would have been easy to rush over that in just an episode to deliver on maybe some of the fan service they think League players would be craving for. But it's in this sequence of Jinx versus Echo that we really get to see their choice of patience pay off in dividends. Arcane, specifically the half dedicated to Vi, Jinx, and Echo, is the story of tragic children. It's kids who are forced to memorize escape routes and hideaway spots to avoid corrupt, abusive police. It's kids who live in communities so polluted that visitors have to wear gas masks or suffer the toxins within the air. Kids who grew up being constantly reminded that they were less than those who live just one bridge away. And yet, like kids do, they learn to have fun anyways. Echo and Powder embody the childlike joy that can be found in any community across the world. No matter how rich or poor, privileged or oppressed, these kids find a way to smile. But life has a way of tearing you down, and as we grow older and older, the illusions and lies we tell ourselves in order to laugh start becoming harder and harder to believe in. The Echo we knew who played with his friends and practiced shitty martial arts in the streets is gone, and in his place is a grizzled, pessimistic, betrayed and guarded man who has been fighting against his best friend for years to save the community that she and others are trying to destroy. This sequence perfectly encapsulates the evolution of Echo and Powder and their relationship with each other. As the music kicks to a start, the camera focuses behind Echo's pocket watch. The clang of its metal chain jangles with each sound like a rhythmic ticking clock. And beyond it, what is now Echo's enemy Jinx devolves back to the girl he once knew, Powder. No longer strapped with machine guns and grenades, and instead outfitted with a makeshift cooking pot helmet and a paintball gun gripped between her fingers. The camera tilts up to reveal not the vengeful protector of Zaun, and instead just another kid playing games with his friend. The beat drops and the style shifts to a gritty mix of high contrast colors, spray paint, and limited animation. As Echo rushes in to swing at Powder, we flash between the real clash of enemies and the distant memories of friends. On one hand, it's a dramatic metaphor that this is the result of a dissolving relationship between two peers, no longer playing in the street with each other and now battling for blood. And on the other hand, it's a reminder of the themes of this show, the wars we choose to wage and the victims that even the most righteous of causes create. As Vander said in episode 2, no one wins in war. Who are you willing to lose? Blood has been drawn, and the ones who are paying the price are the children we wanted to protect. The fight culminates as Echo goes to finish off Jinx, only to be reminded, as we just were, of who this person really is. Beneath the trauma and the crimes, beneath the guns and guilt, is a girl who he could once call a friend. It's a beautiful sequence that defines what makes this show great and will be infinitely rewatchable in the years to come. You know, in response to all of Arcane's successes, there's been this growing sentiment that Arcane did what almost no one else could. There have been dozens of video game adaptations, and almost every single time they have fallen face first into, at best, a pile of mediocrity, and at worst, an outright insult to the property they sought to adapt. And I've struggled with this, because I love Arcane, and yet I feel as if to call it a video game adaptation isn't quite accurate. League of Legends has no real story. It's a competitive game that uses characters as a means of marketing and providing visual engagement, but lore and narratives, that's not really something baked into the game itself. You could maybe argue that Arcane is less of a video game adaptation and more of a short story adaptation. The short story being the character bios that the lore team put together over 8 years ago. But the more I thought about it, the more I felt Arcane truly embodied a fan's experience with League in perhaps a different way. A way that no one seemed to be thinking about. Maybe the beauty of games like these, on a narrative level, aren't in sprawling, long-form storytelling. The idea that Arcane is a stunning 9-episode story has very little to do with League of Legends itself. But the fact that the story of Arcane is so heavily intertwined with these hyper-stylized sequences and that the show is so insanely rewatchable has everything to do in Riot's history with game cinematics. Leading the creative team behind Arcane are two men named Alex Yee and Christian Link, the creative designer and director of Riot Games respectively. These are the people behind the 2014 Warriors music video that became one of Riot's most iconic collaborations to date. Since then, they had been toiling away at this story while slowly building a creative empire between them that encompassed Riot's lore and music teams. They are the key figures behind so many of these beautiful cinematics we've gotten throughout the years. And it wouldn't be inaccurate to say that that was a muscle exceptionally well trained. With this show, these two were able to translate an expertise in metaphorically laced, bite-sized storytelling to what became some of the defining moments that made Arcane's massive success. Riot Games could have partnered with anyone to make this show happen. League of Legends is a huge game that attracts a worldwide audience. But they were patient and careful with who led the project. So when the question is, how did Arcane do what other video game adaptations couldn't? The answer is in trusting the creatives that were already a huge part of what made this property loved by its fans. Thank you for watching. Before I go, I just want to give a quick shout out to all of the incredible patrons over at patreon.com/KatoYT. We're super active in our patron Discord, and like I said, we actually watched the premiere of Arcane with those in the server. So if that's something you're interested in, pledge just a single $1 to get an invite. I also write and produce a webcomic called Romeo, Juliet, and Juliet that you can read over on Webtoon Canvas. You can follow the channel's Twitter at KatoBeyond or my personal one at Hoodie_writes. Links to everything will be in the description. Again, my name is Hoodie Song, this is Kato, and thank you for watching.